You're listening to the Ron and Don Show on the Ron and Don Radio Network. ronanddon.com.
All right, what's going on, you guys? The day after Christmas, episode number 43 of the Ron and Don Show, brought to you by Les Schwab. They heard your plea. Now you got three episodes of the Ron and Don Show each and every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Get signed up for the newsletter. Thousands of you have done that. Hundreds of thousands of spins now, the Ron and Don Show. We thank you for that. How can you get signed up for the newsletter? We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, just go to ronanddon.com, click on that radio microphone, and then it's right underneath the really huge picture of me and you. I don't know how to make it smaller.
Oh, okay.
And our web guy,
yeah.
I don't want to bother him, so it's just a giant picture of us, and then below that, you can sign up and you will get the newsletter every week. And then I'd just love to encourage everybody to help us get the word out of the Ron and Don Show. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you know someone that you used to listen to us, and we still have new folks finding us every single day. They go all the way back to episode 1 and try to get caught up to episode number 43. So help them find it, help them install the right app on their phone, help them hit subscribe, even sync it up to their car for them, because that just, for folks, and what we're finding, there's a new study out from Variety, a lot of people are still new to podcasting, don't understand the mechanics yet.
Yeah. You know what? Let's jump in right there. In fact, let's talk about podcasting. We're also going to talk a little bit about eggnog, because a lot of us have had a lot of eggnog this week. And a little bit later, I'm going to share something with you. I had a very disturbing phone call a couple Saturdays ago. Very disturbing. And after I got this phone call, I stayed up all night. In fact, I didn't sleep for days. And then I started getting really angry about this phone call. And I want to share with you some things about this phone call and what I've decided to do about it as we head into 2020. So that's coming up before we get out of here today on episode number 43. Let's talk about the rise of the podcast here a little bit, because I have people that come up to me all the time and they're like, you're not broadcasting anymore. And I say, well, we are broadcasting. We're broadcasting on a podcast. In fact, some of our great advertisers like Les Schwab, they have decided to follow us and sponsor our podcast. And I know they still do a lot of great work on terrestrial radio, but they're beginning to sponsor podcasts too. And there's a lot of advertisers out there that are interested in podcasts. The reason they're interested in it, people that seek you out, that have to find you, that come and look for you, they are, in radio, we call it P1s, primary listeners. And in podcasting, sometimes your audience is a bit smaller, but people are so loyal. You think of Joe Rogan, for instance, and his podcast, or you think of Adam Carolla. You talk to people, or you go to an event that they're having, and their fans are out of their stinking minds. I have never seen anything like it. They are so loyal and they feel so connected. And Adam Carolla figured out years ago. He said, you know what? I'm leaving terrestrial radio. He could have a job in terrestrial radio today. He said, I'm heading to podcasting. Joe Rogan, same thing. One of the most listened to podcasts in the nation. And it seems like podcasting, Ron, is beginning to catch on. Younger generation, they listen to podcasts. They're comfortable with it. But people that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, yeah, a lot of times when they look at me, they're like, well, you're not broadcasting anymore. I was like, well, we're on a podcast. They're like, yeah, but you're not broadcasting anymore, because to me, I don't even know how to find a podcast. I've never listened to one. So, it may as well be that you're not broadcasting it anymore.
Yeah, so Variety.com did a study. This is just a media sort of industry and news thing. And what they found is that there's an acceleration right now in podcasting. 90 million people in America. That's like almost a third of the entire population. And you got to think you're counting children and elderly folks and everything in that number. So a third of adults, or a third of people in America, children and adults, listen to podcasts monthly. That's up 23% from 2018. So that type of growth is really huge. And so that's accelerating. And so 40% of those listeners, though, are between 12 and 24, and only 17% are older than 55. And so what you see here is that there's going to be a lot more room for growth in the older demographics. In the same way that, when Facebook first, the social networks first caught on, it was almost exclusively younger people. And then the younger people always jump to the new thing. And so younger people went from MySpace to Facebook to Twitter, then they go to Snapchat and Instagram, and now they're on TikTok. And so the new generation keeps trying to find the new thing. And then the growth that you see in like a Facebook is now, if you ask a 12-year-old, they're like, Facebook's for old people. They don't see that. They're like, I'm going to be over on TikTok. I'm going to be on some other social media platform. And so same thing, sort of the growth trend you're seeing in podcasting. Here's the thing that I find super interesting is the amount of money that big companies and tech companies are now investing here. Spotify spent $400 million last year on acquiring things in the podcast space, including they bought Gimlet Media, which was a company in New York that was founded by a former guy from This American Life. And they spent a huge amount of money to acquire that company that makes really good podcasts. And that I found to be very cool. You're also going to see a huge battle for Apple's dominance. So Apple right now, and it's almost exactly our statistics on the Ron and Don Show, Apple has 63% of the podcasting market share in America. That's, like I said, almost exactly what ours is, maybe a little bit higher. And right now, though, Spotify, which we sponsors the Ron and Don Show, they're going after this market share really hard. They're like trying to acquire more stuff. And so it's going to be interesting to see. The other thing that they find is that 49% of people, so nearly half, on their favorite podcast, if they need to make a purchase and their favorite podcast advertises something in that space. So let's say you need to buy a mattress and you have a favorite podcast and they advertise a mattress, you will deliberately seek out that company that advertises on your favorite podcast. So for us, we've had people, it's like, I love Ron and Don. I needed new tires anyway. So I went to Les Schwab, and they email me and they talk to people at Les Schwab. I had to get chains. I needed to buy them somewhere. And so I like the Ron and Don Show. I'm going to go to Les Schwab. And so half of people, which is an amazing statistic, to have nearly half of listeners to do that. And then the other thing, I just got invited to go speak to a high school in January about podcasting, is that so you have these highly polished shows, but I was listening to some folks that say virtually anyone, it's a good exercise to do a podcast. Even if you're a high schooler, a small business owner, if you just work in an office somewhere, you're a construction guy, the exercise itself of being consistent, of keeping your mind active, of talking, of trying to connect with an audience and a community is just good for you. And so even if you're like, I could never speak, I'm socially anxious, it's probably even better for you.
Yeah.
To like, it gives you an opportunity. I've heard a lot of people go, I started a podcast and I'm interested in whatever. And so it gives me, I have a book club. You can now reach out to your favorite author and just go, would you come on my podcast? And even if they say no, the routine of creating content, the routine of reaching out to other people, the routine of talking into a microphone, it is good for you. It builds community. And even if you get 100 listeners, 100 people is a big deal.
That is a big deal.
Imagine if you were in a restaurant and 100 people showed up. That would be an incredible party. So a lot of times people go, Joe Rogan gets millions of spins every week. I only get 100. 100 people listening is an incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, that is an incredible accomplishment. In fact, the Ron and Don Show, this is episode number 43. This thing has been spun almost 200,000 times now. And that is thanks to you, because we continue to broadcast, because we have great sponsors like Spotify. The Ron and Don Show, brought to you by Windermere, and also our good friends at Les Schwab, who are sponsoring today's show. So we're grateful for that. And I think you're going to see, as more advertisers jump out and they say, hey, we're going to go after these loyal audiences in podcast land. A lot of them are leaving terrestrial radio in other markets. Because sometimes in terrestrial radio, you have to sit through 12 minutes of spots, and people don't have to sit through 12 minutes of spots anymore. And it used to be the podcasts were just horrible. The content now, and I have to give NPR a lot of credit for this, because a lot of their great hosts have gone off into podcast land, and they have done just an incredible job.
Shows like Serial, and great
at their presentation, and then you have great interviewers, people like Joe Rogan that will sit down. He did an interview I listened to the other day with Steven Tyler. Steven Tyler, now 72 years old, from Aerosmith. he got things out of Steven Tyler that I only thought Howard Stern could do, right? Because Howard Stern is a great interviewer. You think he's just some shock jock. He is a great interviewer, and we're finding out that there's people out there like Joe Rogan that can really interview too. So, hey, don't go anywhere. We'll come back in 1 minute. We have figured out the mystery of eggnog, because chances are this week you've had a lot of eggnog. You're probably tired of the eggnog. My grandfather said if you don't put brandy in eggnog, you're going to ruin it. So there I was at 11 years old putting brandy in my eggnog. That explains a lot of things. And then also, something that I am not going to take into 2020, I've decided. I got a phone call a few Saturdays ago that really jolted and really made me angry. Really pissed me off. And in a way, I felt righteously so to be angry. And then I had to ask myself, is this anger serving me right now? And I'm going to take this anger into 2020 because it seemed like I was. I'm going to try not to take it into 2020 with me, and I'll tell you how. And I bet you'll relate to it. We'll talk about that before we get out of here. It's the Ron and Don Show, episode number 43. Hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate you guys listening the day after Christmas right here on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Ready for a great 2020? Take Ron and Don with you. Just hit subscribe and get the show delivered to you every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Hey, Ron and Don here for Les Schwab. Don, the other day I was driving out by Gold Bar. I hit a little patch and my wheels just started spinning. I'm like, what? This is not like 6 inches of snow. What is going on? I know that you changed out your tires recently. You're getting much more traction with the Les Schwab tires. I'm thinking maybe I should just drive into my Les Schwab and say, tell me about these, because I was spinning out like I'm on 6 inches of ice.
Yeah, they have their own custom tire line right now, and you stop by in, just say, hey, I heard Ron and Don talk about this on the podcast. You guys have your own tires now. And the thing that I love about their tires, if you don't love them, you can just return them, and you can drive on these tires for weeks. And just say, hey, I don't like these tires, bring them back, and they will make sure that they put some tires on that you love. I don't think you're going to return them, though. I haven't returned mine. Stop by Les Schwab Tire Center. How do you find one? LesSchwab.com. That's LesSchwab.com. And don't forget to ask for the Les Schwab Best Tire Value Promise. It just means for the life of the tire, everything is free. All right? LesSchwab.com. Let's say it together. Doing the right thing. It matters this holiday season.
Hey, are you ready to sit down with Ron and Don? Start your real estate journey? Reach out to Ron. Just write him ron@windermere.com.
All right, Ron and Don Show, episode number 43. Thanks for hitting that subscribe button. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Les Schwab for sponsoring today's show. They heard your plea. Now you got three episodes of the Ron and Don Show this week as we head into 2020. Eggnog.
It's the most controversial of all Christmas
I got to
beverages.
tell you, man, I love eggnog. I only allow myself one eggnog latte. As soon as they come out in Starbucks, I have one because I love them so much and I would drink them every day. And then also, I love eggnog with brandy. It's something that my grandfather from Mississippi, we started doing when we were kids, drinking eggnog and brandy. He did not believe that even children should have eggnog without brandy in it. So you always,
I like your grandpa.
He would spike the eggnog a little bit. So eggnog without brandy, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but all the eggnog I've had this year so far, one eggnog latte, and then that's it for me until 2020 of next year. You like a good eggnog latte, don't you?
I do, but it's weird. I've scaled way back. I haven't even had one yet this year.
Oh, good for you.
Because it's like you said, once you have one, then you start thinking about them. And I know it's just sugar and cream and eggs.
And a little nutmeg.
And
in
so,
my case, when I was 11, a little brandy.
So there's a woman for Vox.com named Melinda Foucaid who says she did a super deep dive on eggnog. It's really fascinating.
Right.
Her journey started with she has a gag reflex about the thought of drinking an egg. Mm-hmm. And so she's like, I can eat scrambled eggs. That's fine. A poached egg, no problem. A raw egg as a beverage makes her just go, ugh.
Yeah.
And so she's like, this sounds like a cake recipe where you have eggs and heavy cream and sugar. It's like, sounds like we're making a baked good, not that I'm going to drink this thing. So she's like, what's the fascination with this? Where did it come from? And so she went all the way back to like the 1700s and tried to figure out, first off, just the word nog. She's like, what's a nog? Like, Do you even know, like, what is a nog?
What is a nog? Yeah.
So nog was a cup.
Okay.
Back in the 17th. So she's like, it probably came in this specific cup, and it was a nog cup, and someone saw them crack an egg in it, and then they called it eggnog. Or there was a concept called noggin, which was a type of serving mug. So again, it was probably that. And then she's like, it's just weird. And so the thing that she came up with, which I find interesting, most likely this was a beverage where you could show off. So back in the day, eggs, cream, and sugar, and then an alcohol like a brandy or rum, all were expensive.
Oh, okay.
It was not, unless you had your own chickens, eggs were something that it wasn't easy to come by.
So this was a status drink.
It was a status, sugar especially.
Okay.
So if you lived in Europe, just think about how difficult it would be to get sugar. So sugar cane, they did make sugar from beets for a while. It was a very laborious process. So it wasn't like you could go down to the local Trader Joe's in 1700s and buy a bag of sugar.
Yeah.
So if you had sugar, that was a status symbol. Now, if you had rum, same thing. Rum was derived from sugar from the Caribbean. So if you had rum or you had brandy or you had whiskey and you had sugar and it was the holidays and family was over, to show off, you would make eggnog.
And you couldn't get that at the Trader Joe's in the 1700s either. You had to go to Safeway or Kif's.
Correct,
right?
exactly.
Okay. That's what I thought.
And so that was the first thing. And then what they discovered is some people were getting sick from salmonella.
Oh, boy.
And so some genius person was like, but I like my eggnog a lot. How do I not get sick?
Brandy.
And they figured out if you put alcohol in there, that it kills off.
See, my grandfather knew that.
Salmonella.
He was a medicine man.
Right.
Little did we know he saved my life when I was 11.
Modern era.
Thank you, Grandpa Charlie.
We have pasteurized eggs, but back in the day, you had unpasteurized eggs. So it was, and you had to put enough alcohol in there to stave off the salmonella and getting sick. Here's the thing that is happening to the Egg Council of America, the American Egg Board.
Yeah,
is we had $185 million in eggnog sales last year. That's 53.5 million jugs, which seems like a lot. But there's a war against dairy right now. And there is a war happening with the non-dairy beverage industry.
People are just throwing cheese curds at each other
People
right now.
do not,
aren't they?
Like, do you drink milk anymore? Like, I drink almond milk. I drink soy milk sometimes, oat milk. I do not buy. The only milk product I buy is half and half. I haven't switched over to I have to have half and half of my coffee.
The only time I drink,
draw the line.
I don't know what it is. I wake up every night at 2:32 in the morning, and I will have a glass of milk, and then I go back to sleep.
2%?
Yeah, and then my son wonders where all the milk went for his cereal.
I buy cottage cheese.
And a lot of times I
don't
don't remember drinking the milk in the middle of the night. It's just part of the routine. And this started a couple months ago. I get up, I drink the milk.
Like a nice cold glass of milk, though.
In the middle of the night.
Got to have 2% non-fat.
And it's the only time I drink it. The only time, and I hadn't drank milk in years, but it started a couple months ago. So
I almost lost it the other day. I bought one of the expensive cups of coffee at Starbucks, the roastery.
Yeah.
Like the $5 one.
Okay.
And so I went over and I'm about to doctor up my coffee, and I inadvertently started pouring non-fat milk into it.
Oh,
what kind of monster pours non-fat milk into coffee?
Nobody does, because when you go to Starbucks, the half and half is always empty.
There's some guy in the world.
2% is always full. And I wonder, because I always, almost every day, take the half and half, and I go over to the barista and I say, hey, can we fill this thing up? And then I put it back, and everyone's lined up for the half and half. How come people don't turn in that canister? So when I walk over, there's a full bottle of half and half.
Somewhere in the world, there's a guy that always has a full thing of half and half.
Not even a half bottle of half and half.
A quarter half.
Yeah, not even that.
If you are putting non-fat milk in your coffee, stop it.
Okay.
You have permission from me for the rest of your life. You're drinking 1 cup of coffee, 2 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
You don't need to skimp. That's not doing anything.
What about granulated sugar? Starbucks ran out of granulated sugar to all their Starbucks this week. They finally just got it back. Do you put granulated sugar in your drink?
You know what? On this diet that I'm on, the low carb one, it's like very low sugar.
Yeah.
So I do the stevia, which I know. Believe me, I'm rolling my eyes with you. I get it. It's not optimal.
It's not.
That's why I got to have half and half.
Okay.
I'm doing the stevia. So eggnog, you're showing off. If you like eggnog, you are a show off.
All right.
Then embrace the booze. That's killing the salmonella.
Hey, I like to think that I'm not an angry person. I don't think I'm an angry person. And I think I am quick to forgive.
You sometimes have a tone issue, though, where you appear to be angrier than you are.
I don't. Do I still have a tone?
Sometimes.
Do I?
But it's improved over the years.
I hope so. I've been working on that, working on my tone, because I know that I have a tone issue, and I had something happen the other day. A phone call I got a couple weeks ago, on a Saturday night, 11:07 on a Saturday night. This phone call made me as angry as I've ever been in my life.
I can't wait to hear about this.
As angry as I have ever been.
We haven't talked about it.
We haven't. I've only talked to 2 people about it. And I'm going to talk about it next, right here on the Ron and Don Show. Episode number 43. Hit that subscribe button and stop into a Les Schwab Tire Center and say, hey, you guys, thank you. You heard our plea. Now we got three episodes of the Ron and Don. And that's thanks in part to the men and women at Les Schwab that made sure this week, Christmas week, that every child got a toy under the tree this year in Western Washington. Thanks to them. Thanks to you. Thanks to all of us. See you in 1 minute right here, the Ron and Don Show, only on the Ron and Don Radio Network.
Ready for a great 2020? Take Ron and Don with you. Just hit subscribe and get the show delivered to you every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Hey, it's Ron here with Brett Clark. It is cold out here. A lot of people are getting ready for winter driving season. They should stop into Les Schwab.
Absolutely, yeah. We're starting to see frost come out. And now if you haven't come by to get your tires checked, if you haven't come by to have us evaluate, please come by. We have that pre-trip safety inspection. If you're just driving back and forth to work, if you're going over the pass for the holidays, no matter what you got, just come on by and let us take a look at that vehicle. We do that for you free of charge. It's the free pre-trip safety inspection, and we're glad to have you.
The other thing is chains are not really chains anymore. When I was a kid, you had an actual chain, and now I'm like, I know how to do this. I'm a guy. And I pulled it out of the bag there. It's like, I have no idea how to install these chains.
Yeah, absolutely. They're the chains that we have right now are very, very easy to install. They're called Les Schwab Quick Fit chains. Super easy to put on. They come by the store with those. If you don't know how to put them on, we can have one of our people show you. Otherwise, there's a video that you can watch, a QR code on there, a video you can watch that'll walk you right through it. But most importantly, super easy to put on. 2 minutes, you're back in the warmth of the car, and you're traveling down to Grandma's house.
All right, it's cold. Be safe. Stop by a Les Schwab. There's 85 locations to serve you. They are going to hook you up for some winter driving.
Hey, do you need some great real estate agents? Consider Agent Ron and my dad, Agent Don. Yeah.
All right, episode number 43 of the Ron and Don Show. I'm going to share something that's really personal. And it's really personal to me, and at the same time, the people involved in this story. You'll never know who these people are.
Let's call the main character Nor. I'm just kidding.
So start over. I want you to think about this feeling. And Ron, I'm going to ask you about this feeling in a minute. I want you to explore this with me. The feeling of anger. And sometimes righteous anger. Do we have the right to be angry about something? And sometimes we do. And anger is a real emotion. But anger is also, I'm learning, tethered to other things like anxiety. And anger can be tethered to sadness. And anger can be tethered to getting stuck, and anger can also really be tethered to never becoming the person that you want to become. And for a lot of people, sometimes anger can be directly linked to depression. So this time of year is hard for me. And one of the reasons it is hard for me, and I haven't shared this before, and I'll just share this. My little sister passed away. It'll be 5 years ago now, next year, early next year. She was a music minister in a church, and Ron, you knew her. You were.
I went to second grade with her.
Yeah, you're best friends with my little sister Colleen, and we used to play in a little band together. And she ended up marrying the guitar player because you were the singer. Nobody ever marries.
Nobody ever marries a singer.
Nobody ever marries a singer.
Yeah,
so.
we literally had homeroom together in second grade, and that's when I met your whole family, and we're friends ever since. Very, very dear friend.
Yeah, this is her favorite time of year, and she would put on the Christmas play with her whole family, and they'd get involved. She died a number of years ago of ALS right after Christmas, and so this time of year, I really, really think about Colleen. and I really miss her. And I bet for you, there are people that you miss this time of year too. Believe it or not, I have some great Christmas memories of my father. And even though my father left when I was young, I think of him and I miss him. I miss my grandpa Charlie. I miss my grandma Caroline. I miss them. And at the same time, I really tried to just be focused on the connections I have in my family now. This time last year on Christmas Day, I was with my mother. I was with her husband, Stanley. We were with my son, and we were providing hospice care for Stanley, and he would die a couple weeks later after Christmas. So I think about that, and at the same time, not in a sad way, in a good way, because I was glad that my son and I were able to be there for Grandpa Stanley, and we were able to be there for my mom. So anyway, I spent a lot of time as we're heading into 2020 reflecting. Have you been thinking about reflections at all?
A little bit. Like I have a memorial coming up in Oakland, California between Christmas and New Year's that I'm going to be heading down for. My birth mother died earlier this year, and they, for some, I don't really know why, but they postponed the memorial till now. And so doing some reflecting on that. I'm trying to keep it in a festive mood, though. To be honest, I'm like deliberately trying to be festive because I know this is going to be sad.
Yeah.
So I've been sort of keeping it at bay until I actually get there in person.
Yeah. What do you do with the emotion of anger? And then I'll tell you briefly what happened a couple Saturdays ago that got me so angry. What do you do with that emotion?
Lately, I've just been trying to lean into stuff when things happen where I get a rise in whatever emotion is to lean into it instead, and then most of the time it dissipates faster for me if I just lean into it than if I just sort of acknowledge it and go, wow. I try to pay attention to the physical sensation. So what I notice is when I get angry, the back of my neck heats up. And I clench my fists and my shoulders go up. So when I feel those things in my body, I'm like, oh, like this is what anger feels like. And I just try to lean into it, experience it. Don't try to push it away or push it down. Just let it happen. And then if I acknowledge it, it lasts less length of time than if I'm like, no, don't feel that. And then it rears up again. Oh, push it down. So if I push it down or try to manipulate it in some way, it keeps coming back. And if I just go, okay, this is what we're going through right now, it seems to go away quicker.
Yeah. A number of years ago, it was January 20th, and it was 2018. So this year will be 2 years. And I'll just share this with you. I haven't shared this before. I made a phone call one night when I'd been drinking. And I sent some text messages one night when I was drinking to someone that I really loved and cared about. They say that you love 3 people in your lifetime, and this is certainly someone that I loved in that way. And I woke up the next day, and this person told me about the phone calls I had made, what I had said, and then they wrote me a beautiful letter. They wrote me a beautiful letter and just said, you know what? You need to explore your relationship with drinking. You need to explore your relationship with alcohol. And the other thing that they did is they forgave me, full stop. Just forgave me. And that's when I decided that I would go on this journey. This journey for almost the last 2 years of not drinking. In that journey, I have failed 4 times. I have drank 4 times. Not for days or weeks on end, but I've drank. I've failed 4 times. But more often than not, there's many days where I have prevailed in the last 2 years on that journey. But they say that when it comes to recovering, it's not a straight line. And it hasn't always been a straight line for me. It's been hard. It's been tough. And at times a very lonely journey, but a very fulfilling journey, because then you get to show up and be present. 2 Saturdays ago, I got a phone call 11:07 at night. And it was from this person that forgave me 2 years ago. And it was from this person and someone that they're currently dating. And they were inebriated and they called me. What happened in that phone call, the things that were said, the things that were texted to me, and I had not been drinking that night, were painful. And I'm not going to share what was said, but but it was very, very painful. And it was very, very hard. And I was very, very sad. And I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep for a number of days. And then my sadness turned into real anger. Really angry. So angry. As angry as I have ever been. And I went and I talked to one of my mentors that has helped me throughout the past couple of years. And we talked about the anger, and we talked about feeling that anger, and that it's okay to feel anger. It's okay to be angry. But if you stay tethered to that anger, it will destroy you, is what he told me. And I could begin to feel that as I was mourning the loss of my sister and Stanley last year, and begin to feel sorry for myself, and then this phone call. And then he asked me, he's like, have you ever made a phone call like that? I'm like, yeah, you know I made a phone call like that. A phone call I don't remember 2 years ago. And he said, what happened as a result of that? I said, some really great things that sent me on a great journey. And he told me this, and I'll never forget this. He said, sometimes the things that cause you the most pain, when you lean into those, they end up changing you the most. I used to do this little run every day around Discovery Park and here in Seattle, and there's a lookout point, a fire lookout point, and I stop there daily, and I sit on this bench, and I say a prayer. And I recommit that today I'm not going to drink. Today I'm going to be the best damn father that I can be. I'm going to be the best human that I can be the best brother, the best son, the best partner, best dog owner that I can be. And I leave things there on that bench. My relationship with my father over the years, I've left that there on the bench. The pain that I've felt as a result of my little sister dying, I leave on that bench. Sometimes I listen to her music when I sit on that bench. And I leave it there. And this phone call and these text messages, I had to go leave on that bench. And it's not easy because sometimes you leave something on a bench and then you go get in the car and it follows you. It's tethered to you. And you know what I'm learning? Forgiveness. Forgiveness is really about ourselves. And what's really hard is when the other side doesn't ask for forgiveness and you still have to forgive. You feel betrayed and you still have to forgive. Even if they don't ask. Because I don't want to take that bitterness and betrayal and disappointment into 2020. This morning I sat down. We were in a meeting the other day with a group of folks at Windermere. And we went around the table and we talked about our morning routines and the things that we do. And there's a young man by the name of Corey that was there. And I asked Corey, I said, Corey, what do you do every morning? He said, you know what? I sit down and I write down the 3 things that I'm most grateful for. And I did that the other day. I wrote down the 3 things, just like Corey, I was most grateful for. And I wrote down the names of these people that call me. And I chose in that moment that I am going to walk in forgiveness and that I'm going to be grateful for them and grateful for that phone call in the same way I'm grateful for the phone call that I made 2 years ago because it set me on a different path of becoming the man and the human that I want to be. I'm not going to allow this anger to control me or take this into 2020. I'm just not. I'm going to leave it on that bench in Discovery Park. A couple things I read to myself when I sit on that bench. And one of the things I'll share with you now is that when it comes to forgiveness, when we forgive each other, when we forgive people that we feel like have betrayed us, we forgive family members, and you probably had to do that during the holidays as you sat down with family members that sometimes, even though you're 40 now, they can take you right back to being 9 years old. Forgiveness is something that allows us to step into the present and not be anchored to the past. I'm going to head into 2020 with forgiveness in my heart. I'm going to head into 2020 and ask myself, what was my part in that? What was my part in that phone call 2 years ago? And what was my part in that phone call 2 weeks ago? And you know what you find out? You have a part. I'm not going to worry about what's on their side of the street because I need to clean my own side of the street. And in doing so, I'm going to forgive myself and forgive them and not be tethered to the pain and to the anger. And to really release it and let it go as we head into 2020. I hope you got a spot, hope you got a place where you can go, sit, and that as we head into 2020 and this new decade, that you're becoming the human that you want to become. And a lot of times it's about forgiving and letting go and not being anchored to the past. And forgiving yourself for a phone call that you made 2 years ago that you're not super proud of. And a phone call that you received 2 weeks ago. And thanking God that in that moment when you got that phone call 2 weeks ago, that you were sober. And that you were able to handle that. And I have to say, I handled it beautifully. I did. You don't have to be anchored to it. Let it go. It's the Ron and Don Show, only on the Ron and Don Radio Network.